Here's dummy. You big dummy. You big dummy. You big dummy. You big cold-blooded dummy. You big dummy, see what you did? Oh, no, you big dummy. Oh, no, you big dummy. You dummy.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for watching, tuning in, listening, just in case this is a podcast format for you. But I am John Parker.
And I'm Dr. Daniel David.
This is Men's Compass. Men's Compass is a video series where it's dedicated to men's mental health, good sound wisdom, logic, and sometimes entertainment. And we hope that you all get that vibe as you watch us there on screen.
Right.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
He's the one who laughs a lot. Okay. So.
I do laugh a lot, but maybe that's to cover up my pain.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? Laugh to keep from crying.
This is becoming therapy now.
It is. Today we're talking about the inner critic.
Yes. Are you critical of yourself?
Depends on what I'm doing. I think I'm more critical of myself when I'm playing video games than I am in real life.
Okay.
So, you know,
right.
as I want to do so well.
The truth comes out.
Hey, I mean, you know, it's just what people generally seem to care about the most is, I think, in my experience, what they're the most critical about.
Right.
But, you know, it just depends on the person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we talk to a lot of guys who are struggling in life with self-esteem issues, self-confidence issues. And one of the things that we listen to as we're listening to our clients or anybody who may come to us just to talk is what's happening on the inside. You know, what are they saying to themselves? And the inner critic tends to follow us wherever we go. Sometimes we think, well, if I move to a different city, things will be different. But you know, wherever you go, you are, right? So, and so we really encourage guys to kind of listen to your own self-talk, especially to any of the negativity that you use to kind of motivate yourself. So some things that I feel are really a struggle for guys is the judgments and the shoulds. I should have done this. I should have done that. We often say that that's like shitting on yourself, right?
So, shitting on yourself. Yes. I like that.
Okay, so
yeah.
And so I'll ask guys, why are you doing this? Why do you use this self-talk? And I think that it's important to acknowledge that we all come with a history. We all have reasons for or ways that we grew up that may have not been helpful to us, and maybe our parents didn't know about it. We're not here to criticize parents, but a lot of times when we hear criticism from our parents or criticism from school teachers or
coaches,
yeah, we internalize that, and that becomes part of our own internal dialogue, and that's that's what harms the self-esteem for most men.
Yeah, and it's interesting because oftentimes you'll hear there's different type of people, right? So you have some guys who are motivated by coaches saying, do better, you're dragging your ass, do this, do that, you know what I mean? And then you have some guys that are like, yo, I'm more motivated when you encourage me and say, hey, you did this well. This was a good job. And then you kind of ease in how they need to change and do something different. And oftentimes it's the same thing that happens with our inner critic. We get so used to hearing negative voices or things that aren't positive. And so we take on that role thinking that that's what will help motivate us. And in the long run, it does more damage than it does good.
Right. Yeah. So we're going to try to go through a few points with you guys just to let you know how to, what does the inner critic sound like, and then also how to tackle these inner thoughts and to change them. Okay, so when we look at the inner critic, we really want to identify some key issues with the inner critic. Are you a guy who has all or nothing thinking? Maybe you discount the positives in your life because you could have gotten that award last week and then, think, well, that's not good enough. And we tend to push ourselves as men to, perform and to be performers, but we don't realize that this dialogue is actually harmful to us. So, so it's a negative scorekeeping for most guys. Talked about the should statements, I should have done this, I should have done that. Hindsight's always 20/20, and we can always say what we should have done, but that really doesn't help us. Right. We can say what we will do, right, in the future. Labeling ourselves like I made a mistake or I am a mistake or I'm not good enough. These are things that really play on a man's self-esteem and actually causes us to feel inadequate, right? So these are some of the problems that I see with negative self-talk.
Yeah, and it's oftentimes good to figure out the roots of these things, like where these things come from, because oftentimes guys will come into the office and they'll be like, yo, I just struggled with this for so long, or I'm finding myself in a place where I can't handle certain things, or certain thoughts and ideas come to my mind and they're stuck. And we have to say, okay, well, where did this come from? Where did these voices begin? And sometimes, like we said before, it may come from parenting. It may come from a warped sense of self-motivation, like we talked about at the beginning. Also, social media. I think social media is the biggest thing now in our current culture, especially here in America, that gets guys off track. Right? Because you're able to see other people's lives, you're able to see their accomplishments, the good times, because that's all that people are putting on social media, right? They're not putting, I failed as a father today, or, my wife hates me now, or my girlfriend hates me now, or, all of those different things. And if we get caught up trying to keep up with these identities that people have online or on social media, and then compare them to ourselves, we're never going to meet that measure. Right? We're never going to meet that meter, that yardstick that they have for themselves, or that they're putting out there. And so oftentimes we have to step back and analyze, like, hey, is this my dad's or my mom's voice that I'm hearing? Is it that I'm comparing and contrasting my life to these other people, which probably isn't real, or the presentation isn't real anyway, on social media, or even the mental conditioning, like you're saying, with these cognitive distortions, is what we call them, technically, right? And so it's one of those things where if we're not careful to deal with and know the root of these things and try to offset them, we'll be caught up in these things, and it'll be hard for us to break that cycle.
John, I get really worried about what we see on TV and in social media, especially with all the instances of men, and bad behavior. And by all means, I've been here for a long time, working with guys for 30 years, and I don't like seeing the bad behavior. But what I get afraid of and get concerned about is that guys are being labeled as we're all bad, and we're all being put in the same pot. And especially young guys going into college, feeling very insecure about themselves socially. But then we're watching TV and we're seeing this on Facebook and Twitter, how men are behaving, and then now it's the Me Too movement, which is awesome. We want to encourage women, but we have to remind ourselves that we're not all bad, and that being a man is not a pathology, right? So a lot of those negative stereotypes and negative images are coming across, and I think it really impacts men's self-esteem. Something that we really have to think about and pay attention to.
For sure. All that stuff feeds their inner critic.
Right.
It doesn't help to minimize the critic. It increases it.
Absolutely.
And the voice becomes even louder.
Right.
Yeah. So what do you think are some key ways in which guys can kind of combat this or kind of offset this stuff?
Well, with positive affirmations, remember, we are conditioned beings. And if we have this negative self-talk going on inside of us, we're conditioning ourselves as well. So it's really important to break the conditioning. And like any good sport or any good activity, we have to start with adding new habits. And thoughts are habits. The way we think is a habit. If you tie your shoe in the morning, test it out yourself. Which shoe do you tie first? All of this is a habit, and we have to really challenge these habits of thinking with some positive thinking. So positive thinking does work, by the way. I've seen it work over the years. It may not feel like it works in the beginning, because to say I like myself may feel weird and odd. I've actually had groups of people say, let's talk together, let's say it together, I like myself, and you'll hear all the laughter in the audience, right?
Right, yeah.
Because it feels odd, because we don't say these things to ourselves. But that's because we've been conditioned to be hard on ourselves, to be tough on ourselves. So positive affirmations like, I like myself, I love myself, I'm a good person, I'm a good father, I'm a good man, I'm a good a friend, and really accenting good qualities about ourselves. And these things will help us if we use them to stay focused on the positives rather than the negatives. We have to really challenge those thoughts.
And one thing I've been really really tuning in on dads that come to see me now is making sure that if you have a son, that your affirming of him is something that you do verbally. It's one thing to be like, for, guys, we like to give off auras and feelings like our sons are doing good jobs, right? But we don't say, son, I appreciate you. Son, you're doing a great job. Son, you're good just being who you are. Son, yeah, I know I was an all-world athlete and have all these accolades, but you're a great drummer. You're a great musician. You're a great pianist. You're a great baker, whatever they do. And make sure that they're affirmed in what it is that they actually do well, so that they don't have to forever live in your shadow and feel as if they have to achieve what you achieved in order to be a man or whatever. And that's the thing that drives the critic for a lot of guys that I see is that they don't have enough or didn't get enough of that affirmation from their father that can kind of quiet the negativity that comes from the inner critic sometimes.
Right. So we have to really listen to how we speak. And if we're not able to encourage our sons because maybe our own internal dialogue isn't good, then we've got to work with ourselves first. It's like, the more I really like myself, the more I'm able to like others, the more I see my own positives and gifts and good qualities, the more I'm able to accentuate those in others and validate those in others. So, this work is really about the inside out. And so, when we do that kind of work with positive affirmations, it does help us to then be more connecting with other people, and especially, our kids.
For sure. Okay. What you got next, man?
Okay. And so I want us to think about using also rational thinking. Sometimes we think with emotion. A lot of guys will come to me and I'll listen to what they're saying, and what they're saying is, I feel like this, I feel like that, I feel like, something's negative, and in reality, those feeling statements are really coming through emotional filtering. So we walk into a room and we scan the room and we feel a certain way and we think, okay, people are ignoring me. They're not paying attention to me, right? And that's not rational thinking. If we walk into a room and, we rationally look at individuals and see the facts, well, maybe they're already in a conversation. Maybe they're already focused on something else. And so we're not really using a rational way of thinking in order to challenge the negative thoughts that we have. So, getting away from feeling statements and really get back to, what's really happening as far as rational thinking.
It's funny because it reminds me of when working with kids, like the stop think principle, right? Like, hey, stop.
Right.
Before you respond or do something that you shouldn't do, think about what it is that's actually happening and then do, right? And so you have the grown man version of stop thinking, rational thinking, which I enjoy. That's good.
Well, yeah. I mean, I like yours better,
actually. Just depends on the
Maybe
crowd.
I need to do that, okay?
I definitely need to do that. That's for sure.
So, and then the third one is the reward-based thinking.
Okay.
Rather than beat myself across the finish line, I need to really set myself up with positive rewards. That if I finish this paper early, I'm going to be able to go out to the movies. Or, if I get this job done today, then I'll have more time to have fun later on, play some video games. Right?
Now
so there you go. Right.
Yeah.
So rather than, we tend to think that if I'm hard on myself, I'll do better. But in reality, we know that, with studies around high school students, kids who are told that they're not there yet, but they're growing, they're changing, they're getting closer to those good grades, right? Often do better than the kids who actually, are told, you got an F or you got a D and you got to try harder. That doesn't motivate anybody.
Right.
Yeah. And so we often do that with ourselves too.
I wonder if that's a cultural phenomenon. Like, I feel like negative reinforcement, right, gets so much more run in our culture than positive reinforcement. Right. And I don't know, it seems as if that's a father wound, like we've talked about on some of the other shows, right? Where it's like, your father was harsh, so you're harsh, and that motivated you. It's almost like, yo, I got beat every day, and look at me, I'm great. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I got all the whoopings, and I'm just fine. And just like, yeah, it may not be the whoopings, it just may be that you learned a lot of valuable lessons in life that allows you to be a rational human being. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because I feel like there's probably a lot of career criminals that got whoopings every day too, right?
Exactly.
So.
And it's been proven that that sort of abusive nature, abusive talk, is harmful to children, and where do you think that harm goes? We just stuff it down inside, and then we grow up to be men who are wounded.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. Well, listen, I think that this was a great conversation for me and a good reminder of what I need to do as a father, right? And as a husband, and as a friend, you know, and making sure that if my inner critic is a louder voice in my head than the positive, than the affirmations, than all of those things, and I'm headed for, I'm on a slippery slope, right? And the idea that we're conveying here is like, hey guys, make sure that your inner critic is not the only voice that you hear. It's not the loudest voice in the room. And if it is, come see somebody like us and have a conversation, and we can figure out how to help you build yourself up, live in the positive affirmations, make sure that you're having positive thinking, rational thinking, and not going in these tangents that aren't healthy for you. And yeah,
absolutely, it's important to challenge the way we think, break the conditioning, and give ourselves some new ways to think, especially something more positive, more uplifting, more encouraging.
For sure. Well, this is Men's Compass. Make sure that you tell a friend. Make sure that you share, that you like, that you subscribe to the channel. And if there's anything that you want to talk to us about, any ideas that you have, you can drop them in the comments. You can send us an email. I was going to give out your phone number, but I won't. So you can text this guy, but I won't do that just yet. No. And if you're in the Georgia area, the Atlanta area, we'd love to see you in person. Come on in, get some sessions set up, get some that one-on-one treatment that you need. And we're going to be doing groups too at some point in the future. So we would like to get a group of guys involved in some conversation.
And remember, we're on Facebook, and we're going to be on Twitter and Instagram as well.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. This is the Men's Compass. I'm John Parker.
And I'm Dr. Daniel David.
All right. Talk to you next time. Bye.